Oh my gosh, my Google ads aren't working. My ads aren't working. I don't know what to do about Google. It sometimes can feel incredibly overwhelming. And to a certain extent, I get it because that is exactly why I pick up my phone and why I work to serve you. Today, we're going to be talking about why your Google ads aren't performing and how to fix it. And what's so funny about this is I was literally had this entire podcast planned out and then Google made an announcement. And so I went ahead and adjusted the entire script to make sure that it fits because I think it is something that is really going to help some of the businesses that are listening to this podcast. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about why context matters more than you think, how focusing on the wrong metrics can drain your budget, and why some business models, they just don't work like cold traffic, and how your industry's reputation might even be working absolutely against you, even if your actual business is fantastic. So grab your notebook because we're about to turn Google Ads around. Let's jump in. All right, let's start with the problem number one. And again, I'm going to come up with 4 really good ideas here. So I want you to stay in so you hear all of them. But the problem number one is the biggest mistake that I see, and that is the lack of context problem. What is happening is you have someone searching on Google. Maybe they're looking for personal trainer near me, kitchen renovation services, and your ad pops up. Great. This is amazing. They then click, they land on your website, and then nothing. They don't convert. They just bounce. No phone call. They don't fill out your form. They're not booking. And you're sitting there as the business owner thinking, what on earth? My ad was relevant. I followed everything Sarah said about quality score. My landing page looks good. Why on earth did they not convert? And the issue here is that you're asking for too much too soon. Your call to action says book now or get started today. And then you have to put yourself in the position of your potential customer. Now, you would think that I would see this only on the business owner side. That is absolutely not true. I have worked with agencies and I've seen agencies do this mistake. So if a major agency is making this mistake, I absolutely know business owners are making this mistake too. So what's happening is your customer, they literally just learned your business existed 30 seconds ago. They don't know if they can trust you. They don't know if you're qualified, and they don't know if you're a good fit for their specific needs. It's like walking up to someone at a coffee shop and immediately saying, will you marry me? You might actually be a wonderful person, but they need a lot of context first. They need to get to know you. They need to get to trust you. They need to have that full experience. So I'm going to give you a real example from a real client that I worked with. I actually worked with a fitness coach who was advertising personal training sessions. His landing page had a huge button that said, book your first session, $150. He thought he was being great. He was actually saying the price so people didn't have to hunt for it. I think that that is wonderful. He was running his ads. He had the absolutely perfect messaging, and he was getting people right there to the page. And what was happening is he was getting a ton of clicks, but people were just not booking his services. But what I saw is people would land on his landing page. I could see his analytics. They were immediately leaving. And when we looked at analytics, we realized that people were searching for personal trainers. They'd hit his ad, and the bounce rate was so incredibly high that it was plain and simple. They were thinking, how can this person actually help me? Do they understand my goals? Are they going to judge me? What is their training style like? Am I just signing up to be trained by some meathead who's going to yell at me? They had all these questions. And so instead of asking people to book a $150 session right away, he changed his approach. His new call to action after speaking with me was get your free body scan. And what happened is this trainer actually had invested in one of those big body scan machines that cost a lot of money. And what ended up happening is he would bring people into the body scans and they would say, oh my gosh, I had no idea you XYZ, you specialize in this. Oh my gosh, I came in for this free scan. I had no idea that you were so good with this type of training. That is where he learned everything that I talked about above and all those questions his clients had, but he wouldn't have really ever understood that unless he had offered that free body scan, got them in the door, understood what their real goal was, how much they wondered if he could help him. And he didn't really understand that he needed to be explaining that in person and how he could help. So guess what happened? His conversion rate went from less than 1%. I mean, it was practically zero, let's just say it, on his website, to over a 25% conversion rate. So people search for personal trainer, they come in for the body scan, they meet him, they talk to him, they get to know him, and they're like, yes, be my trainer. This was absolutely amazing. So same ads, same traffic, but now essentially we're asking for something that made sense given the context of where these people were in their buyer journey. So here's the key. Match your ask to your audience's readiness level. If somebody has never heard of you before, don't ask them to buy a service like personal training that is a highly one-on-one personal service. Don't ask them to buy a $2,000 service. Ask them to take a smaller step. Maybe it's downloading a guide. Maybe it's signing up for a tour. Maybe it's signing up for a webinar. Maybe it's scheduling a free consultation. The rule of thumb that I use is this. The more expensive or personal your service, the more context people need to be ready to buy. And if it's a $10 product, maybe it's an impulse purchase. If it's a $10,000 service, you better believe that they need to get to know you first. Now, let's talk about the second mistake. And again, we're going to have 4 solid mistakes along with the big announcement that Google made towards the end of this video. So with number 2, you're focusing on the wrong metrics. And this one's sneaky because the metrics that you're obsessing over might actually be working against you. I see this all the time with my owners that are reading a lot of Google Ads content, right? They're getting content from here and there, for everywhere. And then all of a sudden what they're going to do is they're constantly focused on one metric that they read an amazing blog about. So the one that I'm going to take, and I'm going to roast this metric to death, is the impression share. Gosh, I love impression share, but it's a great example. So I've had a business owner that will say, Sarah, my impression share, it's only 60%. I need to increase bids. So my ad show, I have 95% impression share because they read it in some article somewhere. But here's the thing. Sometimes you don't want all that traffic. You don't want that impression share. Let me explain with a story. So I was working with a client and they were running B2B products and they also had B2C services. And on the B2B side, they sold enterprise software and they sold it directly to companies. On the B2B side, they had a consumer app that they were selling. The keywords for both services had some overlap. So people, for example, let's just say, because I want to keep their privacy, would search for project management software, whether or not they were a business owner looking for an enterprise solution or they were just somebody trying to organize their personal life. This is the search term that they were looking for. My client was absolutely obsessed with impression share. He wanted his ads to show for every single relevant search. But when we looked at the data, we actually discovered a huge chunk of his traffic was the consumer side, and it was landing on his B2B pages. And the B2B traffic was landing on his B2C pages. And so B2C visitors would see enterprise pricing and immediately leave, and the B2B visitors would see the consumer app and think, wow, this isn't professional enough for our company. So his impression share looked great, but his conversion rates were terrible, and he was wasting a ton of money, thousands of software every single month on relevant clicks. So the solution, we actually reduced his impression share very, very intentionally on the business side. We got extremely specific with our keywords. There was going to be that overlap. We knew the overlap would be there. And we really, really made an effort to use negative keywords to filter out the wrong audience. We actually even used a negative audience. We added that. That's definitely a little bit more advanced, but you can exclude audiences. And we actually set up the ad copy to deter the click. So we knew, yes, we would take a hit on the quality score there, right? Like that is going to happen. But we made sure that we wanted B2B buyers clicking on those ads. So we purposely used a little bit more technical jargon to deter that click. And again, did not worry about the impression share because we didn't want to take all that impression share. We wanted the B2C side to cover those terms. So that being said, you cannot get laser focused on a metric, especially impression share, without number one, which was context. So now we've gone number one, context matters. Number two, focusing on the wrong share or the wrong metrics, the metrics you should be focusing on, which are the ones that actually impact your bottom line. Cost per lead, lead quality, conversion rates, and ultimately return on ad spend. Impression share is just a vanity metric if those clicks aren't turning into customers. And speaking of unified viewer performance, I have to jump in here with some of the news that we just got that I wanted to integrate into this video today. Just today, Google announced through YouTube that they're going to have a new report, and that is called the Brand Pulse Report. This is a game changer because it finally gives brands a unified view of their presence, both paid and organic, across YouTube. Historically, it's been hard to prove if your paid ads lead to organic success, but this report is absolutely changing that in YouTube. It actually shows metrics that demonstrate how your paid ads on YouTube can lead to more views on your organic videos. And then what you can do is you can see how both work together and lead to brand searches. This actually uses Google's AI to generate brand mentions in videos, titles, audio, and visuals. Even if a creator just mentions your product, their AI is going to let you know that this is happening. If you're running a YouTube ad, you're not just tracking the click. You can now measure the bigger picture, how your ad helps build an engaged organic audience, fans, which, as we discussed, is going to build that long-term trust and high-quality leads. This is critical because it really forces us as advertisers to shift our focus further away from a pure vanity metric of impression share and towards the true measure of combined paid and organic strategy and authentic brand engagement and trust building. What I absolutely love in Google announcing this is this really, really directly ties into one of the next topics that I'm going to talk about, which is really, really the wrong business model. And it's not necessarily the wrong business model, but what it is, and this is mistake number 3, and it might sting a little bit, but it's some business models don't work well with Google Ads. So this is a little bit different than saying some business models shouldn't use Google Ads. This is saying some business models just don't work well with Google Ads. And what I'm talking about is when you have a product, and this is with a lot of startups, where you're trying to sell directly to cold traffic, meaning people have no idea that they even want this or that this solution exists. So I call this the headache medicine on the internet problem. And think about it. If you have a headache, you go to the pharmacy and you buy Tylenol. You don't need to research Tylenol. You don't need to research the company. You just go and you get it. You have a relationship with the manufacturers or even the generics. You just need your headache to go away. But most businesses that come to me, especially, they're not selling a headache medicine. If it was that simple, they'd be running they'd be running ads and living their best life. A lot of my clients, especially since I do one-on-one consulting, they're selling complex services or basically what I'm going to call high consideration products where trust is everything. And trust takes time to build. And trust is built through paid and organic. And so I'm going to give you a real example, and this might make you uncomfortable, but it illustrates my point perfectly. I once worked with actually a financial advisor who was spending $5,000 a month on Google Ads trying to get people to book investment consultations directly from his ads. His ad said, book your free investment review. Let me start building your wealth today. It sounds reasonable, right? But if you know how financial works, again, highly personal, highly intimate service where you don't necessarily want to open up and be like, hey, here's everything I owe everyone and I don't know how to manage my finances. People don't generally hand over their life savings and this type of information to someone that they just found on Google 5 minutes ago. So again, it brings you back to thinking about your own behavior. If you were looking for financial advice, would you immediately book a consultation with the first person whose ad you clicked on? Or would you need to research them first? Or like I'm doing, I have a very personal high-touch service. You don't just call the Google Ads person down the block. You call the person you trust. Would you maybe reach out to someone who built a huge YouTube video all about financial advice, who maybe is running ads, who now has more metrics to judge if their ads are feeding their organic channel? See the advice above? Google's thinking about us. Google's thinking about us. That being said, maybe you'd read some of their articles, watch some of their videos, check out their credentials, see what other people say about them. And long story short, after this, my clients' conversion rate, when they came to me, their conversion rates were just terrible because they were asking people to take that huge leap of trust without any reason to trust them. So what do? We changed strategies. Instead of getting consultations directly from Google Ads, we focused on building trust first. This is a client I actually turned away and said, on your social, work on your organic, work on that first. And then I advised him that he could supplement with Google Ads and offer a free guide and investment mistakes that are costing you money. And he actually did that. He actually spent some money towards some free products. And I think it absolutely paid off for him because what he was doing is he was using that as a lead magnet. So what we did is I actually worked with him, set up an email sequence. I'm not an email specialist. I referred that out, and he shared helpful advice, showcased his expertise, and included testimonials from happy customers. So in integrating these channels, and he was somebody who was offering tremendous value, right? So he had social going, he had organic, he had an email sequence. And after, what was happening is the clients were coming to him after receiving all this value, and later on they would book consultations. So what in the end, his cost per lead actually went up because again, he's spending more money to drive people to something that wasn't booked now, but long term, his business was set up better and his lead quality improved dramatically because these people were really, really warm. And for his stats were that he went from a 2 to 15% close rate. He was making way more money through his Google ads, even though his metrics on the surface looked way worse, like he was spending money to send people to something free. So here's the thing. If you were in a high trust industry like finance, healthcare, legal, home services, even I've seen this, and absolutely my industry, marketing, people need to feel confident before they'll hire you. And that confidence can't be built with a single click or an ad click. Google now has a solution. That doesn't mean you can't use Google ads for these businesses. It just means that you need to adjust your expectations and your marketing funnel, like I explained above. And shameless plug for Google, they're helping you here. So main takeaway here is instead of trying to get that sale immediately, focus on getting permission to continue the conversation. Now we're going to talk about the fourth and final reason your Google ads might not be working. And this one's tough because it's often completely outside your control. And I call this bad category press. This is absolutely different from bad reviews about your business. This is when your entire industry has a reputation problem, and it's affecting how people respond to all businesses in your space, including yours. So let me paint a picture with a dramatic example. Imagine you're trying to advertise cruise vacations right now. I don't know if anyone saw Poop Cruise on Netflix. You know, it was when the cruise ship breaks down and passengers are stuck at sea with broken toilets and no air conditioning, and it was just really not the best situation. Suddenly, no one wants to book a cruise, no matter how amazing your cruise line might be. This is bad category press, and it happens more often than you'd think. I see this constantly in industries like solar companies because of the high-pressure sales tactics from bad actors. Online marketing agencies. If you have been around my space, people have been burned by gurus promising overnight success, which I don't tell you on this channel, do I? Home security systems because of their aggressive door-to-door sales practices. You often also see this in extended car warranties because they robocall everyone. So even if your business does operate with complete and total integrity, you are fighting an uphill battle with the negative associations people have with your entire industry. So I had a solar installation company that came to me, and immediately I was thinking, oh no, this isn't going to be good. But they were struggling with their Google ads. They had great reviews. I took the time to get to know them. They had competitive pricing. They had great quality installations, but their conversion rates were terrible. People would click the ads and just wouldn't fill out the contact forms because they didn't want to be spammed after and all this stuff. And if you are one of those types of companies that also has the aggregators in your space, I could do an entire video on that as well. Needless to say, with this client, what we did is we dug deeper. We discovered that people were incredibly scared to fill out their form, as I just said. They'd heard horror stories about the high-pressure solar sales tactics and the bait-and-switch pricing and companies that disappeared after installation. Even though this particular company was absolutely nothing like that, potential customers were lumping them in with bad actors. So what did we do in their ads campaign? We addressed the elephant in the room head-in. And if you listen to my Reddit story, you can hear people on Reddit complaining about this industry. Instead of ignoring the reputation, we tackled it directly in our messaging. New headlines, no high-pressure sales tactics, transparent pricing, no hidden fees, been in business since 2015. Over 5,000 local references available. We even created a landing page specifically addressing common concerns about solar companies. We actually had an entire section where we directly tailored it by saying no sketchy practices, because this company was actually targeting younger people with newer homes in a very specific demographic. And we tried the term sketchy because we knew that it would be a little different and it would go with the demographic that they were looking at. And it just worked out in their favor. These results were absolutely incredible. Our conversion rate tripled because we were acknowledging what people are already thinking. We're addressing their concerns up front in the ad copy on the landing page. So here's the strategy. If your industry has a reputation problem, do not pretend like it doesn't exist. Address it head on in your advertising. Use your messaging to differentiate yourself from the bad actors. This means emphasizing transparency, showcasing your credentials, highlighting your local roots, offering guarantees that address the concerns. The businesses that succeed in industries with bad press are the ones that acknowledge the problem and clearly communicate. Don't only acknowledge it, make it funny, make it real, tell them explicitly. So here are your takeaways. Let's wrap this up with some concrete steps that you can take to start fixing these problems with your own Google ads. First, contextualize the problem. Take a look at your landing pages. Ask yourself honestly, why am I asking people to make this big of a step? What can I do? If they've never heard of you, you want to take a moment and ask if that makes sense. Second, the metrics problem. Log into your Google Ads account and look at your search terms report. You might be shocked at what you find. Absolutely consider the metrics. Make sure you're looking at conversion data, not just clicks, CTR, and something like impression share, like I talked about above. And third, the business model problem. Be honest about whether your service is a product that people will just buy right away or if it's something that they just need to get to know you better and date, so to speak. And then fourth, the category press problem. Do research in your industry, spend time on Reddit. I did a whole video about it, and understand your industry's reputation and confront it right there, right away, without any questions. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you, Google Ads success isn't about following a perfect template or absolutely copying what works for someone else. It's about understanding your specific audience, your business model, and your specific market conditions. The strategies we talked about today, addressing context, focusing on the right metrics, matching your business model to your marketing approach, and overcome industry reputation issues, aren't just Google Ads problems. They're business problems that show up in your advertising loud and clear. If you're struggling with any of these issues, don't get discouraged. Every business owner that I've ever worked with has dealt with at least one of these challenges. The difference between success and failure isn't whether or not you encounter these problems, it's how quickly you identify them and adapt. I'd love to hear about which one of these resonated most with your situation. Leave me a comment or connect with me on LinkedIn. I read every single message, and I often feature listener questions in future episodes. And hey, if you're feeling overwhelmed with all this, remember that you don't have to figure it out alone. Whether you work with me or anyone else, make sure that you realize that. And remember, I book coaching calls, subscribe, and follow along. Next week, we'll dive into more strategies that can help you reach the right people at the right time, even in competitive markets. You won't want to miss. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Google Ad Strategy Hub podcast. I'm Sarah, and I'll talk to you next week.